Over these many, many years of telling stories, it's sometimes been reminded that these stories merely form links in a chain that begins nowhere and ends nowhere. And perhaps you'll have noticed that sometimes after a link has been formed, a question has been asked in one way or another. What is your relationship with life now? In a time long, long ago, in a remote and rather primitive village, there was a couple who loved one another very dearly. They were devoted to one another, and they had had an only daughter, a beautiful child. But there was an occasion when the husband went on a pilgrimage to what was a city that was forming at that time. And whilst he was there, he came across a newly invented object, or an object that had been found. It was a mirror. And so in the marketplace, he bought his wife a present, a small hand mirror, ornate and quite beautiful. It was wrapped in a piece of silk, and when he brought it home to her, and she unwrapped it and looked in the mirror, she said, "Oh, I'm beautiful." But being simple being, she did not want to be prideful or allow herself to be fixated on this object. So she carefully wrapped it in the silk again and put it away carefully. But after a time, she became very ill and was about to pass from the earthly realm. So she called her daughter to her, and taking the object where it had been kept, she handed it to her daughter and said, "Open this after I am gone." So after she passed away, the daughter was totally bereft. She cried and wept for her beloved mother. But then one day she remembered the gift that her mother had given to her. So she took out the piece of silk and unwrapped it. When she looked in the mirror, she said, "Oh, Mother, you're here. I've missed you so much, but I'm so glad that you're with me." Now, every day she looked in the mirror and she spoke to her mother, and her father noticed that she was happier. There was now much more smiles on her face. Her step was jaunty. And so he looked to find out what it was that had changed her life. And he came across her one evening as she gazed in the mirror and spoke to her mother. Now the years went on, and the father loved to see his daughter so happy and content with her mirror. So he never, ever did explain to her that it was only a mirror. And so she never ever found out who she really was. She did not mature and grow. Life did not change. And then there's the story of a lion whose territory roamed about the ridges where there was always a wind blowing. And so when the lion came to drink water, it was always from moving water. But one day the lion was walking in a forest and became very thirsty. So, of course, lions have a way they can find water with their instincts, and so the lion found a pond that was still. And the lion went to drink from the pond, but suddenly there in front of him was another lion. And he thought, oh, this is another lion's territory. I better be careful here. I better not drink. So he backed off from the pond. But his thirst grew and grew. But each time he came to the pond, there was the lion. So he thought to himself, well, maybe if I roar, the lion will go away. So he roared, and the other lion opened its gaping mouth and bared its teeth. And so the lion backed off again. But then his thirst became so great that he came, dipped his head in the pond, and the other lion disappeared. And a third anecdote of a prince who was born in that time, early days. And one day he was out with a group hunting when they became very thirsty. So he alighted from his horse and came over to a pond that was there. But when he looked in the pond, there was another being. He was greatly surprised, so he turned to his advisor, who was accompanying him on the hunt, and said, "What is this?" And the advisor, a wise man, said, "Oh, my prince, this is your image." "Oh," said the prince, "where do we meet, this image and me?" And the advisor dipped his hand in the pond and splashed the water on the prince's face. What do these stories bring forth for you? Relative to the question, what is your relationship with life now? What do these stories mean for us?
All reflections come from an inner source, and people, all of us, can get stuck on the reflection, thinking that's it.
Right.
And it's not. It's only a reflection.
That's right. Absolutely right. So what is your relationship with life now? Are you still fixated on the mirror? With its delusions of the past, formed by the past? Are you the lion with a thirst building inside, but fear holding you back? Or has the water splashed on your face, so there's no longer any image? What's your relationship with life now?